Hey guys, so it's about 6 a.m. and the sun is finally starting to come out a bit. We can get a little bit of a better view of where I'm at. Got this nice pond back there and got the fire behind me. It's been going nice and strong. The cabin that I'm at. And while we wait for the sun to come up here, get a little better light so we can see what we're doing, just thought I'd go ahead and explain to you guys why I'm out here. So we're going to go ahead and go back over here by this fire and stay nice and toasty. So guys, first a little bit of background about me. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in a kind of quasi-religious home, but I had an abusive father who went to prison, and naturally, as you could expect, when you grow up in a sheltered / abusive, dysfunctional household, you can kind of go off the deep end trying to sort life out. And so I got into drugs, got into partying. That's a story for another time, but when I was about 21, decided to get clean and sober and start over. So that was over 10 years ago now, and I'm in a place where kind of starting over again. Although I don't like to think of it as starting over, because you can't ever really start over. Nobody ever can really get a true 100% do-over. A better way to look at it is that you're moving on, you're continuing on, going to the next thing. Sometimes in life, you have to hit reset. You have to recognize when things aren't working, and you have to make a change. You can't get complacent in life. A saying I really love is that everybody will end up somewhere in life, but very few people will end up somewhere on purpose. So I want to be one of those people that ends up somewhere on purpose. What that's basically saying is life is going to bring you storms, which is going to bring winds and waves. And the vast majority of people allow their lives to be blown around by those winds and carried around with those currents and those waves. But few people figure out a way to anchor themselves in the storm and to build something, to take control of their destiny and end up where God destined them to end up. I want to be the second kind of a person. And so I'm here because about 10 years ago, when I started everything over, I didn't quite lay the right foundation. So, long story short, I ended up quitting everything, quitting my job, giving this whole God thing a try. And it was good. It was good. Saw a lot of amazing miracles. That's a testimony for another time, but my foundation wasn't fully right. And so I ended up starting a business, didn't really know what I was doing, didn't know how to charge. I started a contracting business, painting houses, and didn't have a background in it or anything. It's really just a testimony in and of itself how that even happened. But that's a story for another time. So I ended up getting a referral pool of customers who knew me as the guy who worked really, really hard, did excellent quality work, but had really, really low prices. So guys, I didn't know my worth. And I ended up just getting a lot of phone calls, and I didn't really know how to tell people no. And I didn't know what they knew. I didn't know what a painting job should cost, what a construction job, a drywall job, etc. I didn't know what these things should cost. So I would throw out prices, and I'd always get the job. Sometimes people would react if they thought my price was a little too high, and I would always end up caving in and just lowering the price to whatever seemed satisfactory to get the job. Well, this set a precedent, and I was always busy, so busy, because I did such good work, and I thought I was making money because I was clearing big checks. You know, you go from making minimum wage, making $200-300 a week, and you're used to seeing those $200-300 checks, to clearing checks for $1,000, $5,000, $8,000, $10,000. You can think you're making a lot of money, but what you don't realize is when you're self-employed, you got to pay extra in taxes. You got to pay extra in fuel. You got to pay extra to buy tools. And you got to pay extra just to take care of yourself, because you're so busy that you're out there buying fast food every day. And just, especially with how I wasn't charging the right amounts. Another contractor ended up telling me later on in life, he said, Chris, he said, at your prices, you'll stay really, really busy, but you won't ever make any money. And that was like the summation of the last 10 years. One thing I did do really well is I did keep really good track of what I did. Excuse me. I kept really good track of what I did, how long it took me, what I was doing. I logged all of that. And I also tracked all my expenses. Well, I should say I saved the receipts and kept records of all my expenses. So over the years, eventually I was able to figure out that I wasn't making any money, and I started raising my prices and raising my prices. And pretty much I got to a point where I just decided that I was no longer going to work for less than what I was worth. And pretty much all my customers just fell off. They just fell off. And my body was falling apart. Ended up having this hernia. Ended up having back issues. Had to go see a chiropractor. Got in a head-on collision at one point, driving a car, and was seeing the chiropractor. Ended up racking up a lot of tax debt because I'd be so busy, and then tax season would come around and I wouldn't have time to do all my paperwork, and then I'd have to continue paying bills, and I'd finally get caught up for a few years, get a couple years behind, get caught up, get behind. And so guys, it basically just got to a point where enough was enough. And I just started raising my prices, knowing my worth. And I just said, if people aren't going to pay me what I'm worth, then I'm just not going to kill myself. What I realized was I would be better off only taking maybe 10% of the jobs that I was, but if I was making 5 times the money, it would end up actually paying me the same amount for doing those other 90% of the jobs. I'd end up making more doing 10% of the work in 10% of the time, just by giving the right prices and stuff. So that's why I'm here, guys. I'm out here in this beautiful forest because I got to put myself first. I've spent too many years putting everyone else first, and there's a place for that. But you got to know how to have a good work-life balance. That fire is smoking me out, so I had to walk away. There's Sam. He passed out on the floor there. But so you got to have a good work-life balance. And another thing that I want to talk about is getting out of your comfort zone. So I'm very passionate about self-improvement, psychology, etc. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that you have to be very careful about getting into bad habits. What we tend to do is we build a little fortress for ourselves, a little fortress of creature comforts, a little fortress of ease and comfort. And this fortress looks like maybe an apartment or a house. It could be some relationships, sometimes codependent ones. It could be your TV, your fridge, your routine. And like nobody knows the exact amount, but they say that somewhere between like 70 and 90%, maybe even closer to like 98, 99%. But everything we do is basically just out of habit. And when you understand how the brain works and neurological pathways get formed, it's pretty insane how you can literally let your whole life pass you by just because you're stuck in a bad cycle of bad habits. So what you thought was a fortress that you built around yourself because you were afraid of taking risks and afraid of discomfort really ends up becoming your prison. So what I've found is that sometimes in life, you have to get out of your comfort zone, because what it does is it forces you to change all of your habits, right? So that's why I'm out here, guys. I basically got in debt, could barely afford my bills, was in unhealthy relationships, codependent relationships, and things were just getting worse and worse. My health was going down the tubes. I'm like about to be middle-aged. You could say this is kind of like a midlife crisis, but I mean, I had my first midlife crisis at age 13. So it's just part of life, man. We go through seasons, you go through hills and valleys, and I'm just in a point right now where I'm literally, as you can see, kind of in a valley. So what I did is I basically just put everything into storage lockers and packed up everything I felt like would be helpful to me on this journey. And I just drove. And I didn't know where I was going exactly. My faith is a big part of my life. I prayed. I felt that God was telling me things were out of balance in my life for a while now. And I kind of had a hazy idea of what the next thing was, where that was. And so I just kind of pointed my car in that direction and I just started driving. So I'm about 1,000 miles away from home. I'm in the northeast New England area. And yeah, I just started driving and ended up connecting with a friend up here. And I was going to try to stay with him. He's a fellow contractor. Him and his dad, they paint also like me. So I thought maybe it'd be a good place to go kind of, you know, work with them for a while I'm waiting to rebuild a customer basis who actually appreciates the work that I do and the value that I can bring. And while I get caught up on my bills, my paperwork, and everything like that. So I was going to maybe stay there, but you know, he's a little bit younger than I am, and he stays with his parents currently, which there's no shame in that. But like I said, he's quite a bit younger than I am, but yeah, they weren't having it. So we decided to come out here to this little cabin and stay in this cabin. Right there we go. That's a little bit better of a view. So yeah, we're staying in this cabin, and we're just gonna figure this thing out. Start fresh, get off to the right foot, and get some better habits going, guys. Some better habits that will lead to getting somewhere on purpose, getting somewhere hopefully better and faster and bigger than what I ever would have been able to do by staying in my comfort zone. So stay tuned, guys. There's a lot to come. I want to share with you guys all the wisdom that I've learned over the years, because I think I could really help a lot of people out who maybe also are feeling like they have found themselves in a midlife crisis or stuck and don't know what to do, don't know how to get out of their situation. So stay tuned, guys. There's a lot more to come. Peace.